All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Tuesday conference call. Matt Ham here with UPrint Faith and Personal Development, working today with the Red Earth team. Thank you all for joining us. If those who are live, for those who are catching this on replay, we appreciate you as well. We do these calls every week just as a way to kind of keep some perspective. You know, one of the things that I do professionally is work with a lot of professionals on a lot of things that most people would overlook, take for granted. In fact, I sat down with someone yesterday and, I was asking her a couple of reasons like why she's doing the things that she's doing, and she couldn't give me an answer. And it really boiled down to, she said, I'm just trying to avoiding kind of like answering and working through some of the difficult things in my own life. So I keep myself busy doing all this stuff and I never bother to ask why I'm doing it. And, she kind of got emotional too in the process, and she was a little embarrassed by that. And I said, listen, don't be embarrassed when emotion comes, because it actually shows that you're feeling something, and that's a good thing. And if you kind of follow the pathway of that emotion, I think it can open you up to some new discovery and some new growth and some new territory that maybe you've been hiding from or locking off. So, today's call is not going to be that in depth, but I am going to talk about some things that maybe most folks would overlook, most folks would avoid, they wouldn't really pay attention to just because they're busy, they got other things to do, and why bother with all of that? And today's kind of three highlight points are focus, preparation, and expectation. Focus, preparation, and expectation. As I mentioned just before we started the call, we had Hurricane Isaias roll through last night. Now, I got to tell you guys, growing up in southeastern North Carolina, hurricanes are just kind of like what you do. You're used to them. They don't really catch you off guard. It's part of living on the coast. You know that you stand the risk of hurricane exposure or storm exposure. And I counted it. This was my 10th hurricane that I've actually been through. I am one who tends to stay for hurricanes. I don't evacuate usually. In fact, I've never evacuated. If it were a Cat 5, maybe I would, especially now that I have kids. But for the most part, I'm going to stay in my home. I know the routine to go through, and it's just like somebody who lives in the Midwest going through, a tornado, or somebody who's in the Northeast going through snowstorms, or whatever the case might have you. I'm used to it. But there's a lot of folks who have relocated to our area, and they're not used to it. And so what I saw during this particular hurricane was a really interesting case study on kind of the human condition. And I'm going to try to make a parallel here from what we experienced with Hurricane Isaias and apply it to how we function in our work life and kind of in our life in general, like the holistic approach to our life. And also tie it into what's going on in culture right now with everything regarding, COVID or, presidential elections or the racial situation, all the stuff, right? And focus, preparation, and expectation are going to be the three kind of cornerstone points that I want to nail home as we navigate through this. After I'm done, we'll open up for discussion, any questions that you guys have. So Hurricane Isaias formed as a tropical depression off of the Lesser Antilles, which, if you look at South America, and you got like the Bahamas and like the island chain that kind of goes around way out there, and you're talking like a week ago. Now, being a North Carolinian, someone who, a Wilmingtonian who grew up on the coast, every single summer, late summer into the fall, I just look at the hurricane report. I keep my eyes on the tropics, see what's going on. It's not every day. I don't obsess over it, but every now and again, I'll just go to the National Hurricane Center and just see if there are any storms that they're keeping on their radar. And so with that practice, all right, I saw that this tropical depression was forming, and it would probably become Hurricane Isaias. And so I know traditionally, living here, that most of these storms have a pretty consistent track record. They kind of roll through the islands, come up by Florida, and then sweep up the coast, and then North Carolina sits out like a giant rear end, and it gets kicked every time these storms come through, right? So we always get, a storm coming through, and it's just the way it works. So I had looked at this, I had been on top of it, I had prepared, and I was watching the radar the whole time. And I saw that there were some kind of atmospheric conditions, and it looked like the storm was not going to be significant. Now, and I know that the media loves to play up anything that's dramatic and sensationalized and, barreling toward the states and, devastation looming. It's like this, it's a clown show, honestly, at how the media only wants to bring things of importance when it's like catastrophic in their opinion, right? And so when you have this storm, and the atmospheric conditions are not letting it become some major Category 3 storm, Category 4 storm, they downplayed it. And what happened, and this is the point I'm going to here, the people followed along. When the media didn't make a big deal out of it, nobody made a big deal out of it, right? And I watched people, their focus was on other things. They weren't focused on what was actually going on. And I feel like focus is one of those things that we use it a lot. What does it actually mean? But I see so many people professionally who are not focused on their profession, bottom line. They're just not. It's kind of a haphazard, half-hearted approach. They're not really focused on it. They kind of maybe want to, but they get distracted with other things. They're looking forward to a vacation, or they get lost in social media, or they get focused on the news, or whatever the case might be, and they lose focus on the fact of like, who are you, and what are you here to do, and in what direction are you heading? Okay. And now, as a business owner myself, we have clients and relationships, and we have everything within that realm from a functional standpoint during a hurricane. So we've got our shift appointments, we've got a plan, we've got to talk about our radio broadcast. So I'm doing all of that, but then I also have all of my family stuff, 5 kids, we've got our home to secure, we've got to go to the grocery store, et cetera, et cetera. What I'm telling you is I'm no different than you are. I've got a personal life too, and I've got a business life. I've got all these different things, but I have to be focused in order to make sure that I don't get caught off guard or distracted. And I think what happened during the storm, it was really wild, is the media downplayed it, and so people didn't really pay attention. And they were kind of like, no big deal, tropical storm, whatever. Well, the morning before the storm made landfall, a hurricane warning was sent out because the storm went from a tropical storm to a hurricane. Well, what happens when that occurs is there's an emergency blast that goes out through all the cell phones. Okay? So everybody in this area hits a cell phone message that says, warning, right? Hurricane warning in effect, blah, 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 blah. Now, a lot of people complained that they got a warning on their phone. I, for one, am not a huge fan of, the Big Brother situation here where they can just tap into your phone and send you an alert at 5 a.m. It sounds convenient, but at the same time, too, it can kind of create some panic. But what was interesting about this is they sent out a warning. People kind of complained about it. Some people kind of started to go, maybe we got to actually take care of some stuff because we have a hurricane coming. And so it kind of got some folks moving. The interesting thing, though, is that there's still a lot of people who didn't prepare for this storm. And I'm sitting here going, okay, number one, the storm's been in the ocean for a week, and yet people are unprepared when it comes because they're not focusing on it. And they're not focusing on it because the wind's not blowing on their house right now. And that's the way a lot of people approach their life and their business. It's like, I'm not going to deal with my problems. I'm not going to deal with issues until my house is on fire. But when your house is on fire, it's too late. It's like, I'm not really going to go through actually practicing my sales calls. I'm not going to actually go through the process and the closing process and client, going out and engaging new clients or sending, letters to former clients. I'm not going to do this stuff until it gets really bad. And then I'm going to kind of react in the moment and really what amounts to be a freak out which is what happened for us, instead of actually focusing on, hey, this is what you do as part of your life and your career, right? This is just what you do every day. Living in the Southeast, I have to focus during hurricane season and make sure that I at least keep an eye on it. I don't obsess over it. I'll watch the stuff every day. I'm not a freak about it, but I'm aware. And so many people, I think, just kind of flippantly go through their days without a definite direction and focus. And then when a situation arises, maybe, oh my gosh, I've got a client appointment. They're coming in Friday. Mr. and Miss Smith. I don't role play. I don't prepare. I don't get my mind right. I don't get ready for that. It's just like I go through the motions, and then all of a sudden during the middle of the appointment with Mr. and Miss Smith, you're like, oh, I really should have, read up more on this house and learned more about this builder, or maybe sent them some kind of information so I could find out more about them in the meantime. And I'm trying to make this parallel to you guys in selling homes, because so many folks that I work with, and I don't know, this may apply to you guys or not, but so many folks just go through the motions until it's too late, and then they end up reacting because they're not prepared. They're not prepared. And that's exactly what happened in this hurricane. And y'all blew me away. Like, I've got my neighbors texting me at like 11 o'clock last night going, oh my gosh, should I go under the stairs and all this kind of stuff? And I'm like, I told you earlier, and I'm not condemning them for this. It was, they're new to it. They're just getting, comfortable with it, and they don't really like this situation anyway. But I was just going, you walk through a scenario ahead of time as a way to prepare. You do checklists. You kind of go through a mental, preparation. You hype yourself up. You go through the scenario, and that is a very tangible, real practice that a lot of folks don't do. That role playing thing. Visiting a moment before it actually happens, so you can kind of emotionally prepare for it. And I just didn't see people doing that. So last night, all over social media, we're seeing people in Wilmington going, oh my gosh, this is a lot worse than I expected. Oh my gosh, this is a lot worse than I expected. And that kind of brings me to the third point that I wanted to tap into today, and that is expectations. Expectations. I think that expectations, man, they can be so powerful, and they can be so, so deadly, because there's a lot of folks who create false expectations, right? I've always been good at everything I do. Why am I not going to kill it? I set my goal for 30 sales this year. I expect it, so then it's going to happen, and they have these expectations. On the flip side, expectations can be damaging, because you're going to expect to fail. And you've kind of been like, I've always struggled, and this is just the way it is, and I don't really expect excellence or greatness in my life, so it's just going to kind of be average or whatever. And so kind of tying all of this in together, this storm honestly was a snapshot for me of how many people walk through their life with a lack of focus, ill-prepared, and with misplaced expectations. And what happens when that occurs is people flip out. They flip out, and they respond emotionally. They, get easily afraid, fearful, misled, misguided, and it creates just an incredibly toxic environment for stress, unneeded stress in your life. And I'm not here to micromanage you guys. You know that by now. I'm not here to condemn you or point fingers. But I'm asking you today, and using this storm as kind of a snapshot story, how is your focus? Are you focused on, the work that you say you want to do? Are you truly focused on the direction that your kind of life is heading? Do you even know? Are you just kind of floating through on the breeze? What does your focus look like? Are you focused? What are you focused on? It's interesting, and again, I'm saying this with a kind of a observational tone. I'm not condemning. Right now, everybody's focused on masks, COVID, medicine, presidential race, all that stuff, right? That's where their focus is. That's where the majority of people are focused because those narratives are being fed to them. So they're being led instead of leading. Now, I'm not saying I don't look at that stuff. I do look at that stuff. I'm aware on that stuff. But I also, too, know, hey, I live in North Carolina during hurricane season. I'm a family guy. I'm a business owner. I have to keep my focus on what's actually going on around me in my real world, some things that I can control as far as if a storm comes, I'm prepared for it, rather than just being distracted and losing focus. And that's a big deal. It's a big deal. So where's your focus? What are you focused on? Do you know? And if you don't, you probably want to consider doing some work on understanding where you want your focus to be, and then really being intentional about harnessing that focus. I was talking with a guy one time, and he used the analogy of a shotgun blast versus a bullet hole. A shotgun blast is kind of a spray. I'm going to spray up on the wall and see what sticks. But a bullet hole is targeted. It's very specific and direct. It's kind of like a laser. That's why they say laser focused. And when something is focused like that, it's like the point of a needle. It can pierce through things. If it's just a blunt object or if it's a broad spectrum, it's not going to punch through. So a lack of focus is often a reason for kind of subpar results or a lack of excellence. It's just a lack of focus. The second part of that is the preparation thing. Once you kind of have your focus, are you taking the necessary steps to prepare every day, every week, every month, every year? People don't fall into success. People don't fall into excellence. People don't fall into a better life. People don't fall into a better mindset. It just doesn't happen. It takes focused concentration. It takes preparation. It takes doing the foundational things that most people don't want to do, and then it takes carrying them out over and over again. And so I would ask you, how is your preparation? Do you prepare for your days? Do you prepare for your tours, or your client relationships? Do you prepare in correlation with your focus? Is your preparation connected to your focus? Because if you're focused on a certain direction and then you prepare to move in that direction, at that point in time, it's just execution. And from there, the final piece of expectation, I think when you are if you're focused and you're prepared, you then have to kind of guard your expectations, because expectations are something that can rob you of hope and rob you of kind of the joy of the process. But if you're consistent with your focus, consistent with your preparation, then you can expect that level of excellence, because that's just the process by which that excellence occurs. You have to have focus, you have to have preparation, then you can expect it. But if you get your expectations off, you're not doing the first two things, you're not focusing, you're not prepared, then your expectations are going to get unmet, and that can kind of leave you discouraged. And so this is all real fresh. I'm still kind of formulating the thoughts in my own mind and heart, but I really wanted to have it as more of an open conversation as I'm kind of grabbing in the air and pulling some stuff together, because this is actually what I'm seeing in the lives of people around me. Not only because of Hurricane Isaias, but just in general. It's just people aren't focused on, they're letting the media dictate their narrative. They're letting the economy dictate their narrative. They're letting other things distract their focus. They're not preparing for the success and the excellence that they want every day. They're not having an intentional process that they carry themselves through on a consistent basis. They're not executing on that. And then it's kind of like the expectation thing. It's like, but I expect things to be good, and then I get mad when they're not. I'm like, how can you expect things to be good when you have no focus and you have no preparation, right? And so, again, this was kind of a wake-up call, if you will, just to say, hey, let's pause. Let's hit pause on the craziness, and let's say, hey, am I focused? What am I focusing on? Am I doing the daily things necessary to prepare to lead me toward the direction that I say I want to go in? And then am I doing things to create a good expectation? And are my actions consistent to make sure that that expectation is met? And I think that those are some very simple kind of ones and twos to cross off your list to help you move in a better direction. As always, if anybody wants to get more specific in your own life and in your own journey about what that looks like, about helping establish some focus, establish some direction, establishing some best practices to carry out some preparation, and then how to build up the expectations in the process, would love to meet with you guys one-on-one and certainly offer that as part of our resources here to the team at Red Earth. But that being said, that wraps it up for me today. Hope you guys stay safe and stay cool in the heat of the summer. And we're going to do some cleanup here from Hurricane Isaias. As always, 910-619-4644. If you guys have any questions, you can reach out via cell or my email, matt@uprint.life. You guys have a great week.